It's a $6 billion a year industry, but for too long, the cosmetic surgery business has been filled with cowboy operators, leaving patients permanently disfigured and mentally traumatised. Now, after a 6-month review, the regulators announced a crackdown. But does it go far enough? Hanae Hamwi is among 500,000 Aussies who go under the knife each year in the name of beauty.
I went there initially to get some injectables. He suggested a procedure called an S-lift. It was meant to be a minimal invasion and a very small amount of recovery.
But it didn't take long for the 52-year-old to realise something was very wrong.
When the nurse came in to try and put the intravenous in my arm, she actually didn't know where to do it. I just remember waking up and I had like these bandages around my head.
She was left to deal with scarring around her ears, numbness and mental trauma that still haunts her today.
It still infuriates me. I just don't understand how this can continue to happen.
Hanae's story is all too common, and it's hardly surprising given anyone in Australia with a basic medical degree can perform invasive cosmetic surgery, regardless of whether they've had surgical training.
I think that it's resulting in systematic patient harm because these rogue doctors are not putting the patient first.
Now, after a series of shocking exposés about the industry, regulating body AHPRA, along with the Medical Board of Australia, are vowing to crack down. Today, handing down 16 recommendations to improve patient safety, including minimum training standards for doctors, a complaints commission, a cosmetic surgery hotline, clearer practice guidelines, and the banning of testimonials for surgeons. But the regulator is refusing calls to hit pause on the industry altogether, and its new accreditation system won't kick in for 2 to 3 years.
What's needed is a mechanism to make sure that only qualified surgeons are allowed to perform this kind of major surgery. And AHPRA is not calling for that.
So will a nip and tuck be enough to clean up this industry?
I really feel like it's a narcissistic playground for these doctors, and it's the people on the receiving end that are the ones that get hurt.
Well, Dr. Craig Rubenstein is a specialist plastic surgeon and he joins us now. Craig, quite a number of changes have been announced. Are they enough?
No. They're not even starting. I mean, to me, it's putting Band-Aids for a surgical problem. There's a lot of things that need to be done.
So what's missing?
Regulation. We believe that surgery should be performed in accredited proper facilities by surgeons who are actually surgeons, trained and accredited as surgeons, who are experienced in that particular surgery. At the moment, it's a bit of a free-for-all. Anyone can do anything and call themselves a surgeon. It's actually outrageous.
Does that then mean that there are people that are about to have surgery in Australia who may not actually be safe?
Well, I think that the best predictor of the future is the past. And I can give you a litany of patients who have wound up with perforated livers, perforated bowels, perforated lungs, emotional devastation, scarring, necrosis. We just look back at what's occurred in my career, which is now 25 years. So if they haven't been safe in the past, why should they be safe in the future unless the system changes? We had one patient who complained to one of the regulatory bodies and was reassured that, well, at least you didn't lose a kidney. I mean, like, is that the gold standard in Australian medicine and surgery? You didn't lose a kidney.
How often are you personally seeing people who need corrective surgery to fix some of this botched cosmetic surgery?
Interestingly, sometimes the surgery is performed technically correctly, but it's just the wrong operation. And the 3 I've seen this week, one who had liposuction that didn't achieve what she wanted it to, so then it had to be fixed up surgically, and the areas of liposuction which should probably never have had liposuction were then unfixable. So that particular person who I operated on yesterday, she had a wrinkled, dimpled abdomen post her liposuction. She wouldn't show her husband, she'd always dress and undress in the dark. I mean, surgically there was minimal scarring, but emotionally she was devastated.
There's a part of this whole story that doesn't make sense to me. If you know anyone that is trying to become any kind of surgeon, they need to go through years of training and practical application of that as well. Why is it possible for someone that doesn't have surgical training to call themselves a surgeon?
I can't actually. I cannot answer that question. I actually still find it literally unbelievable that in any other field, if you called yourself a doctor when you weren't medically qualified, it's a criminal offence. I've worked overseas. I've worked in America. I've worked in Britain. Australia still has the best health system in the world, and I honestly, genuinely believe that. And the reason we do is because in nearly all fields we're highly regulated, we are highly governed, we are accountable, and yet for some bizarre anomaly, cosmetic surgery is outside that bailiwick. This needs to stop. In New Zealand and France, there are no cosmetic surgeons. A surgeon in New Zealand or a surgeon in France is a real surgeon. They have done their 6 years or 5 or 4 of medical school, which we all did. Then they have tried to get onto a training program, which is very tough and very competitive. They have got onto the training program. They've had 3 years of supervised accredited training where they submit logbooks, and they then have to be recommended for an extremely difficult exam, which they have to sit and pass. And I did that more than once. Because the standards are extremely high. I mean, most surgeons will have spent 10 to 12 years before they can even start to call themselves a surgeon, on top of 6 years of medical school. That's 18 years. And yet in Australia, after 5 or 6 years of medical school and 1 year as an intern, which is a very junior position, they can then watch a video, they can go overseas, they can look over someone's shoulder and call themselves a cosmetic surgeon.
All right, Dr. Craig Rubenstein, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your insight.
I hope that was helpful.